friends, welcome to Lions Live on the Forever Lions Network. The only network for other players from the fans. We got the one, the only H with us tonight, and Dr. Big Dude with us. My name's Skip Rowles, talking Penn State football. Big Dude here is trying to adjust his camera to get the best profile of him on here tonight. And H is on here with us. And starting out tonight, we're going to get a little recap of the game, but also more importantly, it was great to see you out there, H, giving the coin toss first quarter, leading the roar of the crowd for the We Ares and the Penn States, and thanking everybody there. But it'd be great to hear your experience here this past weekend with your 40th reunion.
Oh, that was ideal. Listen, as we get started, I want to give a shout out to my brother in case he ever listens to that. Prayers go out to him, Glenn Stanley Hamilton, and for anybody else out there listening who has a loved one in a tough way right now. Prayers and thoughts go out. Getting out there and seeing my teammates from all those years ago, many of which I haven't seen since the game, actually, or certainly shortly thereafter. It's a fraternity, and it's beautiful. And I have to include the fans, like I did in the shout out during the We Are chant, because it's the fans, it's the love of the game that brings us all together, and that commonality, which brings us all here on this show, that we all kind of look forward to, and it gives just a warm feeling. I think for most of us, I think we all have some regrets, some thoughts about what could have gone differently, and things like that. But for the most part, it's a warm feeling. It's a team atmosphere and doing something collectively. And to think, 40 years later, that's Penn State's first of 2 national championships, and to have been a part of that is special. It's really special, and it was really good to come together. And I appreciate the fact that I got to be honorary captain, go out there for the coin toss, and actually thank the fans and lead the We Are Penn State. I've always championed and believed in Penn State football program, and led by our late coach Joseph V. Paterno, and what he meant, I think, as a foundation for many of us for life. So I look forward to coming here with you two, sharing thoughts and talking football. It helps, and I hope that the listening audience enjoys what we have to say, and our feedback, our input, and our insight, having played the game at that level. And We Are Penn State. Let's go.
Thanks for sharing, H. But you make so light of it, but it was I was getting concerned because when they handed you that microphone and you said, "Hey, I got to get political here," I thought, "Whoa, this could be pretty good." I started to laugh.
Did you really say that?
He did.
Oh my Lord!
In front of 100,000+ people, I'm thinking, "All right, man, where is he going with this?"
What's going to come next? Listen, I say, if should anybody listen to this, I really hope that the folks who put that together and everything, know that in my heart of hearts, I believe Penn State football program, what those involved are trying to do with it, is a building block and a foundation and a unifier. And so I made that political statement by my appearance, by my attire, by being referred to as H, and that, I believe, was the political statement in and of itself. Given the climate of our times, which we cannot forget where we are, what's going on in America, what's going on in the world right now. There are people hunkered down as a hurricane hits, and there's some real life things going on. And, as we bask in the revelry of Penn State and Penn State football primarily, keeping that in mind is just very important. And I think that alone statement was the statement. And the fact that the fans helped vault us 40 years ago, and they will do so again in this year, if not, then the years to come.
Beautiful.
Well, it's always a lot more than what meets the eye, and you brought that up tonight, yourself. I mean, the things that happen in people's lives. Your brother, caring for him, Dr. Big Dude here with a close friend just dying here, and we've all had these things happen in our lives in the midst of what we're doing here talking, and that happens to all of us, and so it is more than just football. It is truly a family here. That's great to be able to and an honor to be with you guys talking here tonight. But we all always do realize that there's so much more to this life. So that being said, though, let's make our transition over here to football. And looking here, I got to go back to look at last weekend. Man, we have been getting beat up with some of our picks, and I'm only going to go into to what we had last week, because we'll get to this week's. And but we were beat up. We've been getting beat up pretty bad. Our records. I mean, this is the worst we've picked in years, looking back, because normally we are pretty close, but we've just been off, and it's been a tough year in the Big Ten. Of course, we had Illinois. We picked that one right, and Michigan was over Maryland for sure. But who would have thought that Minnesota would have done what they did to Michigan State? Wow.
No, yeah. Here's the thing. I mean, from my perspective, we talked about the transfer portal and the effect of it. I think this is what's happened over the years, why these picks will always, you can't go by the name. A lot of times we would go by the name of the program, and we would say, Alcorn versus another school, HBCU, and that's what's going to be happening. You have people that are, first of all, that are not all going to Power 5 schools. You got people like Deion Sanders coaching, and Eddie George, and all those folks in HBCUs bringing some of those top players, the ones that are quarterbacks and linebackers that would have gone to Michigan, would have gone to Michigan State. Then you also have some people that transfer there, and then some other folks that transfer within the Big Ten. They end up going some other place, And we talked about the quarterback from Washington, Penix. You talked about that last week, Skip. Here he is, skipping over from Indiana to go right over to the Pac-12. So I think what happens is, and this is what we saw in the game also, that the game was, an interesting game. But then when you start to find out where people came from, some of those other people, they have some good players. It's just that they haven't been able to do a quick fix, a lot of them, with the program. But if you can get 5 good transfers for your defense, and you weren't able to get the 5 best players in the country I would say the 5 best players on offense, or 5 best freshmen coming in the country, you still can gain some parity by the people that you have on defense. And I didn't look to see what his name was, but I saw a linebacker from Central Michigan, number 52. This guy was giving it all he could give, and was somewhere else. And actually, he probably played so hard he didn't have anything left. When it was time really to go make tackles and do other things. But I say that, Skip, that we're going to continue to get beat up on these picks because they're not going to be as predictable as they used to be. That's what we talked about how somebody's program is. It's hard to get an assessment of where the programs are these days with the transfer portal. And I say, with Penn State, it's been a good thing, but it also can mean we've lost some people. Like we lost Noah Cain. Noah Cain was on our team. We've lost our quarterback from Kentucky. We lost a whole lot of people, but we've gained things, and things have worked out well for us. And even the people who got beat up last year, a lot of people don't get a chance to stay in the program. That's why I think the offensive line has gotten so much better, because they got a year to gel. They don't have that dime piece that's going to be a first rounder necessarily playing left tackle, but they have a very good left tackle, and they have 5 people playing well together. And I'm sure that's how it is. And we'll talk about it later, Harry. H in the secondary. I don't know what you think, H, but the secondaries that I saw, and some of the other things that I've seen, people usually get 3-4 years to play together. We don't have that anymore. So then sometimes your secondary could be just mediocre. And guess what? A player like you, H, would go to another local school to help bolster the secondary. So I would say we're going to have some issues. Minnesota has done what they've had to do. They have a coach that's a good coach, a coach that loves them, and a coach that has a buy-in, where Michigan State, you don't know where those folks could lead to. And you have a great coach on Michigan State also. But, Coach Franklin was talking about, how people don't automatically put themselves in a Porter. That's what he said he liked really about, Devin Ford. You got a guy that, like most people, he's a junior. And when they see who's coming in, they put themselves in the Porter. But this is a guy that they say is still in charge of the running back room. So I would say taking a look at the rooms that people are in, whether it's the quarterback room or the linebackers or the DBs, we see all of what's going on. And those teams that had a tag on them, or we could just 90% of the time pick the winner, I don't think we're going to be able to do that anymore.
Yeah, it's very true. A lot of things changing as we go, and we see that with the way it's going. And that was just one that we did not suspect with Minnesota, but Minnesota's playing some good ball. And there we go. Michigan State's just having a down year, it seems. We got it right with Indiana and Cincinnati. Cincinnati beating up Indiana. But here's one you and H missed. Iowa at Rutgers. You guys picked the Rutgers. I got Iowa on that one, and that was a tough game there. But that was the one that you guys missed. So I got one game up on you so far this year.
I actually thought Rutgers would play a better game. I have to say Iowa did a lot better than I thought. Like I said, and I still say with the type of games they need about my comment. I got to listen to the show last week, fellas. By the way, great show last week, and my reference to the Flintstones still remains. I don't know who else Iowa could play about rubbing two stones together and two sticks on the Flintstones. I think that Iowa was way better, even though than what we've seen. But I think when we play them, I think we'll be in. They're going to play us hard, because here's the thing: these rivalries, and when everything, this is the opening. This is the first home game that Penn State is going to have in the Big Ten this weekend. So it's going to be interesting, and we'll get to it later. How it work out.
Yeah, of course, Ohio State won, and Purdue and Florida Atlantic got a hard one to predict there. But here's one that we didn't get right again. You would think that Northwestern should beat Miami of Ohio.
Yes.
And here they are. Now this is going to be interesting, coming off of a loss from that, coming in here to Penn State. It's not going to be as easy a game for Penn State as
never. Yeah, I don't think it ever will. I think we ended up spanking them the last time we were in, Northwestern. I think we were up there. I know we were up, and we ended up running away with it. I think I can't remember how long ago that was, but you got a Northwestern, you got to jump on, and that's what we'll get to. But let's just talk about this last game. H, you said, I know I gave you some information, and I tried to put some thoughts down and some summations and some summaries. What did you see in person? You were in person for the game. You did the coin toss. You saw the game. H, what did you see in the game versus Central Michigan?
What I saw, keep in mind that we're talking, and it's different than just being a spectator watching on TV, or just being a spectator in your stands, and your focus is on a particular player or on the game. We're talking in between, saying hello as we pass each other, even though we had just spent the evening before together in a little bit of tailgate time. The conversations continue. Hey, what's happening? What's going on? So I say that to say that I turn around, and the game just actually stayed closer than I thought it would be for longer.
Right.
And that was somewhat like I expected us to shake loose by the first half. I really did, because I believe that the team is gelling and coming together, and I like what I see out there. Like, I think I mentioned before that there is this growing expectation that we are going to dominate, we are going to win. And I believe that is, when that gels and when that comes together, we are truly going to be unstoppable. And I see that developing. What becomes a bit disappointing is when they seem to stay in the game and a little longer than I would have anticipated. Let me put it that way, because I think I said that I expected them to win 31-10, and it seemed like they took a good time getting going, defensively and offensively. And then suddenly when it did gel, then the domination started. But it got a little concerning there for a minute, and that's what I saw. That's what I felt. That's what I felt down there. That trepidation for a moment that seemed to come in. Like, wait a minute, are we trying to get our footing here, or have we got our footing? And that's what I noticed most, just the ebb and flow. And as you see, I will go with the ebb and flow of the game in terms of, what is the feel? Remember, there are 4 or 5 plays in a game that kind of make the difference and set the tone. And what is the feel? And that's what I noticed most. That feel just wasn't there completely. It seemed like it just took a little while. Like, you had to stir the pot. And I would like to see us come out, with a little more punch in order to carry to go where we need to go. If we're going to be national champs, if I talk about the fans pulling us to a national championship, I want to see a little more pop, a little more punch early on in the game, and I don't want to see them, get a semblance of life like they did. Not this team. I don't want to take anything away from Central Michigan. I mean, they earned those 14 points. They got them. They earned them. But I'd like to see a little more domination on the games that we're supposed to win. Otherwise, I fear that we're going to get into a mindset that isn't going to be good down the road. So that's it. I pause with regard to the assessment.
And let me see if I can add on to that, Skip. I think I first of all, I see just where you're going, with this, and it is true when you start to take a look at but I guess what I'm not going to get into is the fact that we were supposed to be 28-point favorites and we win by 19. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, there's ways to wrap the game up or ways to get better. I mean, we could have probably played less players and probably done what we did. But I mean, to play 59 players, I mean, even if you don't blow them out by another 15 points or so, I think the fact that you got 59 players to play and get a feel for what's going on, and you start to see, especially even at the end when the gentleman, I don't even know who he is, the defensive end, he makes this crazy interception. I mean, DBs leap like this. And of course, they took the interception away. There's so many people's names we're not aware of that we're able to play and that we're going to be able to rely on. Now, I would like to see us play with more fervor, although we know that it's not instant, that we could come back and have a game like Auburn, because sometimes you have a game like that maybe every 3 years, Even some of the better championship teams didn't have a game on the road like that. Like I said, winning down south, and it's a lot to come back from. And and I think Skip talked about this last week. Central Michigan had 0 to lose, so it was going to be a dangerous game, and that's what Joe used to talk about. He used to say, "Hey, you're playing these guys from the Mid-American Conference," and Nick Gasparotto, God rest his soul, he used to say, "Mid-American Conference will ruin your season." And I didn't really pay attention to what he was paying attention to until we lost to Cincinnati that year, in your last year. I mean, we lost to Cincinnati 14-3. I still am waking up from that bad dream, you know,
Oh,
because
no kidding.
that listen, that's a game we should have won by 3 touchdowns if you ask me. But I think we just didn't know. I mean, that was a game we thought we just had to get through. So it's difficult. But if you can play, and here's the thing I liked about the game is, 59 players, and you know, we saw, and I have the statistics a little bit off. Katron Allen, I had 13 carries, actually 11 carries, 13 carries for 111 yards. So he's had a good game, and we didn't have the same effort from Nick Singleton, but this time we saw it was somebody else's game. Katron Allen, his game, he started running people over to put us ahead. I still think the quarterback, Sean Clifford, he had a solid game. He's still, and in fact, one statistic, I have one here that I was not able to put on. I had forgotten all about it because my head was somewhere else. He's responsible for 12 touchdowns this year, and I think I forgot what they called it on the podcast. I think they called it a 6-pick six, something like that. That pick six that he threw, that was the only interception, and that's the only turnover we've had all year. See, and when I look at it like that, and the fact we were able to play our other quarterback to be in those situations, I look at this as a game that we had to get through. And a blowout and the numbers on the board doesn't always mean the same thing. The question is, what did people, like you said, H, maybe we didn't look as good, and did we not look as good because of the score, or because Central Michigan came to play? I mean, obviously, what we saw a program as tough as they are struggling, they don't like to lose, and this probably won't still be a great game. I know last week, Skip, you said that Penn State was going to be the most important game they played. Well, they played just like it was the most important game they were going to play. I thought it was a really good observation you all mentioned last week. Like you said, H, we weren't as good as we thought. Clifford with 3 TD passes, and he had one touchdown run. And Singleton, even after that performance, he wasn't able to do as much because Katron carried the load, 10 yards a carry. And our running backs, all of them, all 4, have no fumbles. They have none. And we still have the respect, I think, from the younger players who have more to spotlight, Allen and Nick Singleton, to see them to continue to say, and the quarterback continue to say, it's still the older running backs. It's still their running back room. And to get those running backs to acknowledge that, I think is where they've gained ground, because one of the things I can tell you, H, learning about you, I learned more about you and seeing your leadership from going 0-3 than even going to win that bowl game. Win that bowl game, you weren't going to go out a loser, but you didn't seem like you were depressed. You didn't drag your head in the sand when we were 0-3 going into Temple, because I sure was looking at some of these guys, H, yourself, and Mark Robinson, and all the people, your brother Lance, and all these other folks, that I think what we were missing in that year is the fact that some of the people who were coming in under certain circumstances, they weren't sure if they belonged. Like you said, it took the older guys to get some of those other people coming up. But that depth that you have from the 82 team, I've still, other than maybe 86, I've still yet to see any depth anywhere near close, than we saw there, So we had that. Then we have a guy who's the punter, Skip, and I'll ask you what you think about him, Barney Amore. His name's on everything. This is a guy and I wanted to make sure, because I played it over and over, half of his punts landed inside the 10-yard line. Half of his punts, not 10, but half of the punts that he's made this year landed inside the 10. He leads the nation. The running backs.
That's an incredible stat.
That's incredible.
Incredible stat.
I have never, I've never heard that stat before. Maybe you have, but I at any level of football, have I ever heard a stat such as that? I mean, that includes Ray Guy and all those other people, Gerald Wilson, all the great punters, Rick Roby, so all those people. I mean, Skip, what do you think about the special teams in the kicking game?
I think with the kickoffs and field goals, they struggle a little bit.
Yeah,
I actually talked to him on the sidelines there as he was warming up a little bit. I stood right beside him, and because I mean I watched him kicking into the net, getting ready to drop a punt,
right.
and of course I'm watching his drop, and because with a punt, the drop is the most important part of the punt itself. Your leg swings, for the most part, always consistent, always the same. It depends upon how you're striking the ball and the purpose of it. We're trying to put the ball down at 10. We want to end over end, or if we're trying to get it up to get it to turn over or not turn over, or directional. But for the most part, our leg swing is pretty consistent. And I noticed him in the way he's dropping the ball. I said, you aren't planning to punt that ball into Varane, are you? And he goes, no, no, no. I'm like, okay, because I see the way you're dropping, you're punting that net. I said, you're dropping it into Varane, hitting it. And he's like, well, I really don't have the opportunity here. There's not enough room for me to get a full stride into a punt into the net to warm up, which I would say I give the guy credit because dropping the ball differently than you are when you're actually punting it, just to warm up to go out there, that can throw you off. But he's showing he's consistent with that, and I guess my words after that, I said, well, just stay loose. That's what he always say, just stay loose, and that's what he was doing. He's trying to keep the legs loose.
Hmm.
So he was doing good, punting the ball. Again, I think the kickoff and field goals, the consistency issues. Pingar, he's a punch kicker. He doesn't, his leg swing doesn't seem to fall through as much, and the left-footed place kicker, and his name dropped on my mind a second here, but he kind of corkscrews a little bit. So he's coming along. He was a soccer player before he came here to Penn State. I don't know that because I talked to his mom at one of the practices up there. But
Oh, that's real cool.
yeah, it's kind of fun. You get a chance to get up here to practice every now and again. You get to know when they do have family and people in to get to know people there and get their backgrounds and stuff. So, but yeah, the consistency is important. The punting game's doing well now. The rest of the kicking game's got to get some more consistency. Whether it be putting the kickoffs in the end zone or just making the field goals. You got to make them. So, not much to say there.
Yeah, we
Go ahead.
can't miss 38-yard field goals.
Yeah, you don't want to be missing them. I mean, the state, you should never miss anything 35 yards, and then that's kind of the same. But 38, we're not much of a difference. Should be making them kicks. With the way the kicking game has changed and gotten so much better over the last 30, 40 years, guys are crushing the ball, and that's kind of becoming the norm. Where at that level, you should be there. So we'll see where that heads off. But a couple of notes on my take of the Chippewas. You're right; they did come to play, and they were their own worst enemy. Because
Yes,
if
they made a lot.
you take away the 2 fumbles and the 2 interceptions, they are in that game.
Yes,
They
and the
are in
penalty
that game,
and the
and
callback.
we could have been in trouble.
Yeah, the callback touchdown. There was a 28-yard touchdown pass that was called that a lot of people would not have called.
Right. So, great win. Thankful for it, but
We'll take it.
we knew it was coming.
Right.
We knew it was coming. So,
Yeah, and I think that's what H is saying. You don't want to give anybody any help, H. I guess that's what you're saying as well. I mean, and I did notice, hey, could you tell us how you handled, that's what I was going to ask you about as you got in the NFL. How did you handle officials and officials' calls? Did you have a favorite official that you played with that recognized you in college or in the NFL?
No, it wasn't like that. I tuned them out. I sometimes I wondered why I did that, but it was one of those things where I would occasionally tap one on the side if he was, I felt like he should move over because he was blocking my view. Occasionally in the secondary, because they had me sometimes playing in the nickel and dime in that like linebacker position. And so occasionally I would have to, move one over. And I did get bothered on occasion when I had to do it more than once to the same official. But generally they were, had to maneuver around them. Had to otherwise set up and line up accordingly. and they were just part of the game. It's like the goalposts and things like that. I do wonder why I didn't pay more attention to who was officiating and things like that, because I was spending so much time trying to figure out actually where coaches had moved along with the players. Like right now, you talked about in the college level with being able to just go into the transfer portal and probably making it difficult to pick teams and everything like that. What I wanted to know, what I wanted to focus on was try to compile who was under what system and had moved and might impact another system, who had moved in, what coaching changes had been made, so I could gauge similarities of system. It's like it was a question of every edge I could get. I wasn't going to turn your head with my 40-yard dash time. I wasn't going to turn your head with, my size. It wasn't like I was 6'3", 220. That was not that Joey Browner sort of size. That was not me. I wasn't going to probably stand up a tight end. I was going to be a scrapper and things like that. So every advantage I could get included knowing what coaches were moving where and what system and passing philosophy or running philosophy or offensive plan that they may have been bringing to as it moved around. As that's where my focus more so was than what official was. I think maybe I would have gotten there. Certainly, if I had been around as long as some of the athletes stay around now, possibly I could have moved to there. But I was too busy trying to focus on the offensive game plans and the offensive schemes and what similarities there might be. That was what I was trying to master, and spent a lot of time in the film room doing it and making moves accordingly. Just to get an edge, just to get an edge up on the opponent. That was it about. I got to use what I had, and what I had at the time was a pretty decent memory. And I like to think I had a modicum of smarts.
Right. Well, that's why I thought, from what I might have seen, I don't recall anything big, but as I got older, I didn't realize there were people that knew certain people, like Ray Isom. As I learned further, he would know how certain officials were going to call certain things, and he would know it. And they would start calling him by his first name sometimes. Hey, Ray, hey, H. I just didn't know if anybody, because I know in the NFL, I used to see that with like Adrian Peterson and running backs like that. I remember the officials were taking pictures. What I had to learn about officials is they're probably the biggest fans of the game. That's what I saw. So I had started to learn there were certain ones that were going to be linesmen and there were going to be other stuff, and they would call me 7'6". Hey, 7'6", so. They didn't know my name, but they could tell the different people were. You could tell the ones that were there, or some people, Joe would get a spot and you would hear, they turn around and somebody say, hey, that's a Joe Paterno spot all the way. You could hear the players say that, and the officials would look at other folks, but you just never seem to complain. And I always wondered, like that touchdown that got called back. I mean, Joe told us a story one time about slinging Sammy Ball. I don't know if I can't remember each of you were on the team. He told us sometimes you just can't, get too upset about the officials, and you can't give them a reason to be upset. And he told us a story. I think they were playing the Giants in one of the playoff games. And Sammy Ball had the ball, and I think they were inside the 5-yard line. And he dove for it. And then it was a flag then. It wasn't a pylon. He dove for the flag, and it looked like he had hit the flag, touchdown. And the official, came and he gave the "you didn't make it" sign. He came over and it was like, nope. And they said Sammy handed him the ball and said, "Good call." And the official said, "Thank you." And they said, then it's 4th down and they have to score. He goes and dives for the flag, hardly touches, maybe doesn't touch the flag, doesn't hardly touch the goal line. And the official has his hands up before he's even on the ground. So he was going to kind of look him out, as time went on. That's why I wondered just how important that was in all the years you spent in the NFL. Did they know you by name? Should they know you You know, hey, listen, man, you're not with the Jets anymore. You're with the Buccaneers. You know what? Because it looked like they talked to you before the games. I know afterwards the officials have to leave the games immediately. You know, but it's just interesting to see how that stuff goes and how people thought things were Joe Paterno calls. You know, there was stuff, and I think Joe was trying to explain something to somebody one time, and I think this was I probably was in my 30s. He tried to explain something to one of the officials, and he put his hand on one of the officials to explain something, which you should get a penalty for. But the Big Ten looked into it, and they said, you're good. You don't mean anything by it. But let's not have it again. Just don't put your hands on them. You can't touch them. You know, and I think if I remember correctly, Skip and H, they're part of the field. You know, if something bounces off of them, and I think H, that's why you moved them, because they were part of the field. Because you had to fight for your part of the field to make sure they weren't in the way, to get done whatever it is you had to get done. So, like I said, you're right, Skip, man. It could have went either way, but like I said, I will say I would sacrifice not making the margin, or not making the whatever the line was, for being able to play 59 players. I don't want to say, pardon the expression, that's the silver bullet for Penn State, so to say, but I would say that is an intangible that I don't think a lot of people pay attention to. And I think the 82 team, when I saw, and Kurt Warner, we were on a show together. As a matter of fact, Skip, you were there when we had Kurt Warner on the show with Quinnis and Blair. And I had said to Kurt, I heard that the 82 team, that you couldn't tell difference a lot of times between the red and the blue. He said, no, that's not true at all. Not true at all. And I was like, oh, okay. So I think somebody was trying to make a point when they told us what was going on. I had a green jersey on, H, and somebody said, I got a green jersey. Why should I be happy? And they said, because you're no different than the blue jersey when you're in the game. So me and Kurt, we didn't really know each other then. And I don't really know him now, but I just didn't know whatever you thought about that. They didn't see, I don't remember them making those type of substitutions with you in the secondary, or have anybody else with you at hero. Like I saw Z-Man, by the way. I saw he was coaching. That's the other thing too. Z-Man, Mike Zordich, is a coach for Central Michigan and was also out for the 82 team. That was big.
That's right.
Yeah, that was interesting for him to come over like that. I think that was kind of interesting. He and Lance, they came in together same year and everything, so they really embraced, because I really don't believe that they had seen each other, since they left school.
Wow.
So that was pretty neat for those two to connect again. I just watched them, and the three of us took a picture together and whatnot. But you bring up some real interesting points about the officiating and some of the nuances with regards. So I believe that the audience, and even I, with the number of years I played, there were those things that I stayed laser focused on, and other things that I just didn't like. If an official called my name, it's not something that stood out.
Right.
You know that there were players who went into the game, particularly at the NFL level, that they were purposefully, swaying the officials,
Right.
in a sense of trying to get them right early on.
Mm-hmm.
It was, the offsides, the holding. And I remember that the sack exchange, I came in on the tail end of their
wow.
prominent, and they would actually talk about how they would get the officials going in terms of the holding calls and the offsides and being drawn offsides and things like that, because there are things that officials miss. Officials sometimes miss the little, step or tweak that a guard might make, because Joe Klecko, was shifting sides around the ball. He would tell the official, listen, I'm going to shift sides, and you watch that guard flinch.
Right.
In terms of trying to draw them off sides. And they would get this, they would try to establish this purposefully in the early part of the. Now, having said that, Joe Klecko playing nose tackle was kind of notorious for ending up in the backfield, and he was the only one moving on the field.
Wow.
And that too was probably purposeful in terms of, his timing off the ball and things like that. He would give up those 5 yards early in the game simply to set a tone.
Wow.
I observed those kind of things in terms of the officials and the swing of the official. It's just not something I ever engaged in.
Right. Well, and you have the sack exchange. Let me see. You mentioned Klecko. Let's see if I can name them all. Okay. You had Klecko from Temple, and you had Marty Lyons, okay, from Alabama. I can't remember where Abdul Salam went.
He was right there. Yep. Wondered if you were going to name him. Yep, he was right there.
Mm-hmm. And then you had, of course, Mark Gastineau. So they just seemed like they had so much care. But what you're saying, much of their game had to do with establishing the line of scrimmage, but also making sure that they were steps ahead of the offensive linemen, and it gave them more to worry about. I'm sure that if you're worried, you can worry. And that's what I wondered, if you have the advantage with the official and the guy knows it. I know that's the worst thing, when someone's going to call a holding call on me, and I've been doing the same thing the whole game, but another person gets to see it, and I always was told, you keep your hands inside. If they're by you, and the officials, I didn't know it until I started coaching semi-pro. The officials are all taught that are inside. They're looking for holding calls. The referee, is looking for poor footwork. He said if he sees, and you say there's a lot of she's involved, and also if the footwork is poor, then that signals to them that there could be holding. I was like, wow, I had no idea that NFL officials were taught to look for poor footwork, from the offensive line. So it's just interesting. Yeah. That's what they said they were taught to do. But and we were talking about defense. Let's see if we can switch over to the D real quick, H and Skip. What do you all think? I mean, how much? Well, tell us. And this is another leading national statistics. And 4 games, 4-0, right? 41 PBUs, pass breakups. There's 41. There's 4 DBs on Penn State in the secondary. They're in the top 15 in PBUs. And now you got Zach Zakee Wheatley, 2 interceptions, 1 in the last 2 games. And then they have nine different defenders that have sacks. Wow. That's some smoke.
I can almost see, I have some hesitancy with the number of players that are playing. Is that showing a weakness? Is that showing a fatigue in terms of what kind of conditioning there is? But it could be a diamond in the rough that's being developed, and that is the ability to make the players interchangeable and work together as a unit, almost no matter who's out there. So I'm sure that there's an upside to everything, and I'm trying to see the upside to the 59 players. Are they learning to take advantage, and are they going to be able to be there? Here's my hesitancy on the take on the 59 players.
Okay.
Are you going to have a unit that is out there when the going gets really tough?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're in the 3rd quarter and we're in a tight game, and are they used to being in the 3rd quarter in a tight game when the fatigue is in there and they have to deliver? I get concerned about that. I get concerned, it's like the middle of the 4th quarter and the game is on the line. Are they going to be fatigued, or are they going to be looking for the substitution and the backup? That's just a concern that I guess I have to an extent, because I always believe that there's like a pace to the game.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to think about for a second that there are those running backs who get better as the game goes on.
Mm-hmm.
And the more you're pumping them the rock, it's like it's just a matter of time before their pace of the game kind of takes over. I think back all the way to Jim Brown and how he would get slow and then explode, with every play, and how that wears down. I think the same thing with the defense, who is pounding away and hitting running backs or hitting linemen or hitting receivers as the game wears on.
Mhm.
That pace, and there's something to that towards the fourth quarter and
Mhm.
dominating the quarter, where sometimes the tough games are going to be decided. So that's a little concern on the flip side that I have with regard to rotating that many players. You
Gotcha.
know, it's just slightly, you know.
Mhm.
But
Well,
that could be because I started playing on smaller school teams, and I was going out. I just didn't leave the field. You know,
right.
I was on offense, defense, and special teams. So I was out there like the whole game. And I always felt that being in shape and being able to be standing when other people are breathing heavy in the fourth quarter was a plus for me. So maybe that's the mentality that is taking shape as I deliver about my concern with the 59 players.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, so what would so and again, I don't know if I think that what's different now is some people don't have to do that as much. I mean, what would be the real way to build depth though? I mean, if you have, I mean, this is what I could tell you about the 86 team. A person everybody never talked about much, Skip, was Keith Karpinski. I mean, this is a guy who he wasn't in blue, he was in red. But every time the situations were the situations, you saw number 84 out there, you know, and I would say, you know, I think that could have been, see, and I think this is what you're saying. So you'll pardon me for saying this. I think I saw it as a person that played on foreign team. I think you could tell without getting into who they were, you know, who was it that was wearing down before other people, you know, on the D line, linebackers, and other things that were going on because we went at it hard, you know, and that's the one thing Joe told us. Joe used to say, go eat them up. And he said, go eat them up, Stefan. Call me Stefan. Oh, I couldn't. You talking about H people messing you up? People messing my real name up, my government. Stefan, go eat them up. You know, but I saw what he was doing. We had to go eat him up in order for people to be there. You know, and I think one of the things I remember about you gentlemen, you and Lance, and I saw even say, you know, DH, Dr. DH with y'all, man. I mean, all I saw was your running. I mean, even when you didn't have to do the 880s, I still seen you doing them. That was crazy. I still say that was crazy thing with somebody over 275 pounds, especially then running the 880s, you know. But I think that's going to be the question when we start to take a look at this game. And I'll mention it, Skip, and then I guess we can get to the downside of things. You know, Central Michigan had 363 yards, you know. And they had 363 yards total, you know, you know, but yet we have 4 turnovers. Now, when we go against this Northwestern team, and that's where I wanted to get to, they're 1-3. It's our first conference home team. They have a great coach. They're not playing great, but if you look at their statistics, a lot of they're better than us in a lot of the areas, you know, especially with their running back, Evan Hall, you know, who's averaging about 5 yards a carry, and he's getting 20 carries per game. And he has 5 TDs, 85 carries in the last 4 games and 5 TDs. That's playing some ball, you know. And even though they didn't win, I'm more worried about a person like that can go grind it out. You know, we had people, you know, that would do that. We had so many backs, H, when you guys played, you didn't need to give people the ball 25 times. Kurt Warner did not need 25 carries, you know, because you had him and you had John and you had Joel Coles, and you had all these other people, and then all of a sudden on the 86 team, you have let's see, Steve Smith,
DJ,
you got DJ,
yeah.
David Clark.
You got John, what's that?
David Clark, yeah.
David Clark, yeah. You got David Clark, you got Tim Manoa. So you had that, yeah. And Clarkie, that's the thing. You see him, and it didn't matter what time of the game it was. He was giving you all he had. And that's a guy, if there was a, you know, to be honest with you, H, I mean, you guys were so good. That's when I realized it was different. Because I thought Clarkie should have been in, you know, when I saw that he had a battle with Mark Robinson for the safety position, I mean, the free safety, I was like, now how are they going to do that? How is anybody else going to be ready? And that was a tough part about Mark doing so well, H. There's an example. Nobody else is going to get a whole lot done by watching. And I think that's what ended up happening in 83. The 82 team, the 83 team, like Joe said, he didn't even wear his ring because he wanted us to be just as good. The problem was there were certain people on the 83 team that couldn't deliver because they had some of the experience, but they weren't out there, like you said, when it counted. So I know that's what you're concerned about, but these guys, they have an outstanding, this is Northwestern, an outstanding left tackle, and they have this guy, Cam Mitchell, who's the number 2. The left tackle is number 77. I can't remember his name, but you had Cam Mitchell, and you had a quarterback that threw 40 times. He's thrown about 40 times a game, Malinsky, with no touchdowns last week. So you have people, all they have to do, and I think what you're saying is, Skip, these are all the games they had pretty much. Northwestern had a lot of tough losses, and that's what a win can turn into if they have all those other things that they want to do and that they're buying into the program. That's the thing about being an academic school. They realize they're going there, and hopefully you're not selling to them they're going to win a national championship, because I'm not going to sell that to anybody. We had Stan Clayton, and I don't know if you remember him, H, he was coaching. He said that was a tough part about Stan coaching for Princeton at the time. He said, I can't, that's the toughest part. He said, I can only sell school to them. I can't sell that they're going to be a national champion, because they're not going to be. He said, but the people writing the checks, they're worried about winning the Ivy League.
Yeah.
Those are the people writing the checks and going. Did you ever go to a Princeton game and a Princeton and Harvard game? One of the most boring games that you can ever go to. People out there sunbathing. I'm out there yelling. You can hear my voice, and people putting sunbathing oil on, saying, "Wow, you're really into this, aren't you?" I said, "What?"
They're sitting there and say, "Well, what do they mean when they said sack?"
Right. Hey, those are the type of things that came up, and that's pretty much where I wanted to leave it at with you all. I'm not going to say a whole lot about this game, other than the fact that we have to be ready, and we have to ask ourselves, are we going to be ready to play every game? And those people that are there, like for example, those running backs. I think the good news is, if anything happened to either one of them, I think that we might not have the home run power, but hopefully what will happen is, if something happened to any of those backs, which we don't want to happen, that we can play our game, differently. And and seeing some of the players getting interviewed, I saw Devin Ford, fine young man. They wanted to know. In fact, they said to him right away, they're already crossing Devin Ford out, number 28. They said, hey, it looks like to me, they said, everybody has a lot of respect for you. You're a great guy. And they say that you're going to be a great coach one day. They would take you as a coach at Penn State. He said, I thank you all, not being disrespectful, but I'm not done playing. And that will happen when it happens. So you have people that are still hungry. And I think that if we can have people who are still hungry, and I think that's what I saw H in that 82 team. I didn't know all those people, but when I went to, meet people like, I can't remember if I met you on my recruiting visit, but I met a bunch of people, and everybody just seemed that I saw, some of the people that were leaving were hungry. But then when you return to camp, there were some people that weren't. Like the 86 team, to be honest with you, we had a lot of turmoil on Camp H. There were people that were leaving. There were people that were going home overnight and wanted to quit, and
wow.
Yeah, no, we had a lot of issues in that camp. I don't know if you remember that, Skip. There were a lot of issues, and there were a couple of people that just weren't going to be around. There were some pretty doggone good players that said, look, I don't know if I can take it anymore, because the pressure was on. And all the coach talked about was, all Coach Paterno talked about was, think national championship every day, and it will happen. He told us that in 1985. Didn't quite work, but then in 86, there were people that couldn't take camp, just like I remember him running up. They just couldn't take it. And there were people that were leaving, and one person had their uniform on and was on the bus.
Yeah, shorts and T-shirt and all, and that's all they had on.
Yeah.
And yep, I remember that, and I remember talking to them when he came back.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, you have to be ready for type of situations, especially with those type of things that the players are looking for these days. And I know that, like I said, we're just about pick time, but I have to say that I think this first home game, that we've had, I think Coach Franklin has won. How many games did he win? I want to say the last 20 non-conference games. Um, he has won. And the last team, by the way, that beat us non-conference was Pitt. And we talked about PBUs or pass breakups. Pitt is number 2 in pass breakups. We have 41, they have 25. So it's hard to say where everybody else is. But with the Big Ten this year, as much success as they didn't have without a conference games, we have taken care of business. Central Michigan is over. And now we've got to treat these other teams, the way they need to be treated. Like I think we beat, I forgot who we beat, Iowa. I think we beat them like 61-20 in one game. The 1994 team. Yeah, they scored 61 points on Iowa. And, in Ohio State, when they had Eddie George, that was a big win, when you had 63 points there. 63-14, we beat Ohio State, a home game. That was on about a month ago. And I didn't realize, I was like, 63 points? And I remember being at that game, with all the other players, Kajana Carter and all those other folks that were there. But it was those other people that aren't in the Hall of Fame and that do other things are the ones that help get us that victory. That's why, H, listening to the show, I agreed with you last week on quarterback Clifford making a bad decision of running the ball. But that game may have turned out different had he not taken a chance, and it wasn't a smart play. But again, we win the national championship game against probably one of the most talented defenses ever in a championship game. And the guy that scores a touchdown, who was 5 of 16 for 53 yards, John Schaefer, ends up scoring the first touchdown. Who's the quarterback? And guess what? You had your Brown and Benny Bleeds and all those guys. So, but anyway, that's my take. So how are we looking this week on picks, Skip? You said we stunk on picks basically.
Well, last week we did, and when looking at Northwestern, you gave a great summary when it comes to looking at stats and numbers. You hit it all down there. My only comments with Northwestern are, they've lost 3 in a row, and the only win they've had is with Nebraska. I think Fitzgerald's going to make this a turning point for this team, and it could be a season turning point for them to come to Penn State with the record they have and to try to knock off Penn State at home. So I think it's going to be a tough game. They always play us well, and we need to be very careful and not take this team for granted, because you've already touched on some of the players and how well they are playing. And, if we look back at our own season, honestly, we see the ball has been bouncing our way. Things have been going in our direction. And if things could have been different in any of these other games, we would not be where we are right now with 4 wins in a row. So, we can trust that, providentially speaking, that the ball may continue to bounce our way. But, out there at any given time on any given Saturday, all it takes is just that one hit, that one slip, that one miss, and it can make a huge difference. So I think it's going to be a pretty close game we have this week. But I want to get into our picture until a second, till we get through what we have here already. And so far, our totals for this year here, 33-13, UNH are tied up, and 34-12. I'm just one up on you. And that was only because of that Iowa pick last week. So we have been missing a lot more than we normally do this far in the season, but we've talked about why too. So looking at this week here, week 5, some of the teams are starting to go into their bye week, so we don't have as many to pick next week the same way because we'll be on our bye week. And because of that, I hope that our team really goes all out. And again, we'll get to that. We have Illinois at Wisconsin.
Illinois at Wisconsin. Should I weigh in, or should you wait for?
I think you should go first this time.
Huh?
I think you should pick first this time.
Oh, you really think so? Oh, wait a minute. I, I, I have to comment on what test might be coming up that I think that we're going to, pass with flying colors. I think that, whatever Northwestern is going to bring is going to be met with a team that is on the way up and beginning to gel. Whether you attribute it to the rotation of some 59 players or you just attribute it to the talent pool. I like what I see, and Northwestern is going to have their hands full. As with the teams to come, I believe this is going to be our testing ground, our training ground for bigger things to come. So I just wanted to slide that in there before I even think about possibly stepping in and making a pick. What do we got again? Illinois and who?
Illinois, Northwestern, and I appreciate your comments, H, and we want to tie that all, dovetail it in at the end when we give our pick for Penn State. We have Illinois, Wisconsin.
Let's see. What are our records here? What's Illinois? Did Illinois lose to a directional team here recently, or did they beat?
Yeah, we won't put you in the spot, buddy. I'll go and pick. I got Wisconsin. Does anybody want to go different?
Hey, I wouldn't say. I say Illinois is going to play as well as they can play, but I'm going to take Wisconsin.
I'm with you. We'll save you on that one.
Oh, I'm saved by the good doctor. Great.
Now, this actually could be a really good game. It's one I'd like to watch. I don't know if it's an early game or not. Let me check the time of this one. We have a Purdue at Minnesota, and let's see, what time is it? That's a 12 o'clock kickoff. Wait, no, I went a week ahead. I'm sorry. I was actually just writing up our schedule for next week earlier, but that's actually a 12 o'clock kickoff. Purdue at Minnesota, 12. So we could catch that game before the Penn State game. That's going to actually be, I think, a good game to watch.
Yeah. I mean, I think that Purdue, again, their quarterback didn't play. I don't know if you saw their first string. It's very interesting. And my thing is, what are you saving him for? I mean, because he's going to get smashed.
Hello.
The dude, what we used to say back in the day, H, he's going to get freaked. So he might as well just go ahead and deal with it. He's going to get freaked. So I don't think this, I'm going to tell you, I think Minnesota is just, Purdue will play the best game it can possibly play, like Penn State. I'm not telling you Purdue can't beat them. I just can't pick Purdue.
I'm with you.
Yep. I'm not taking any chances. I'm going to be very careful about these upsets. Okay, H, what you got?
I'm right with you guys.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Okay. Hey, we have Michigan at Iowa.
Oh. I tell you what, Iowa's not an easy place to play. I don't think it's going to put a lot of points on the board. I'm going to be honest. No. I mean, Michigan, they escaped at home last week for Maryland. They escaped with that win last week.
Yes,
yes they did.
Yeah, I'm not going to tell you that they probably weren't capable of it. They didn't play bad. But hey, Skip, that's another game. That's why I can't go by everything else says what everybody says with mistakes, because Maryland, if they didn't help them with a fumble on the kickoff that Michigan turned into a touchdown, you can't help Michigan. I just think, again, Michigan is a little too good.
Yep.
Yeah.
The same. Yep. I'm with you.
Touché.
Yep. Same. We got Rutgers at Ohio State, and again, I don't think that's the hard one for any of us to.
Why don't we just move on to the next game?
You're right.
Hello.
Well, now this is going to be interesting too, because Michigan State has been struggling tremendously late, and Maryland's actually been doing okay. So Michigan State at Maryland, and I actually picking the Maryland to come out on top of this one. I think Michigan State has not figured out what the problems are yet.
Right. Well, I'm going to take Maryland too, and I'm going to say both of those coaches, both of those gentlemen, and I will say, and people can interpret it how they want, but both of those brothers, both of those gentlemen that are running the show, African American men that are head coaches in the Big Ten. I mean, they both need to win, and I'm saying that because that wasn't the case before. Not that it matters that who's going to win over the other, because of that. But I just want to look at those optics. People don't like talking about that on the show, but those are the two real worthy men. You know, we went through it with other people that we talked about. We rooted for our dude from Illinois, as we call him Grady. We had to be careful of that. But the thing is, I really think that the Maryland team will play for their coach a little bit better. And I think that last week is going to help them get over the top. I'm going to say Maryland and maybe a field goal.
Yeah, it could be a good game, but I think you're right. I still think Michigan State hasn't figured out what their problems are yet. I'm with you on that one. By the way, one of our teammates, who's actually down there in the athletic department, is Mark Sherburne at Maryland.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, Mark's down
How about that?
Yep. I will side note. Then we got and again, it's not a hard one to figure out, but I get to pick. But Nebraska it's going to be a bad year. We got Indiana at Nebraska.
Sorry, Indiana.
Yep. Of course.
That doesn't mean Nebraska can't win.
No.
It means they won't.
It means they haven't been.
Doesn't mean they can't win. They won't.
That's right. And of course, we have our game here, Penn State home with Northwestern. I think it's going to be a game where you're going to see the running game from Northwestern that will, I think, take up some clock. I don't think it's going to be quite this high a scoring game as people think this could be.
Well,
you want me to give my score first?
Yeah.
2014.
Oh, H, you want to say something?
24-14, Penn State.
Wow.
Okay.
Lower scoring than I actually have. Go ahead.
I'm going to say we're going to score 5 touchdowns and 2 field goals.
Whoa.
So I'm going to say 41-17.
High scoring.
When we pull away, you know, there's going to be all talk about upset, and we're going to steamroll.
Yeah, I hope that's the case. I don't see that. I'm close to what I'm 31-24.
Yeah, I understand.
That's where we're at. Next week, we got a bye week. We only have in the Big Ten only 6 games next week to pick. So we could, get in here, get out next week, and give a talk about what happened with hopefully a Penn State win over Northwestern, and what's ahead for the bye week, and looking forward again to the real conference schedule after that.
Yeah,
I'm just going to add to that, minus the word. Hopefully, when we win, we'll be talking about it. So.
Yeah, and I'm going to leave it at that because, and here's my thing: this whole thing about the score, them being 1-3, it don't matter what the score is. I'm just telling you, I picked the score because I know what we're capable of. And here I am. I want, because if they stay hungry and we're able to get the home. See, I think the difference is having this defense, and I think the defense being able to make plays, and to tell you the truth, that's the only thing. If we can take care of the ball the way we've taken care of it, there's just no. I mean, the officials' calls and everything. There's no way, and I think that Central Michigan had their. Besides those officials' calls, Skip, they had their opportunities, and I can't say a team didn't beat. Just like the coach from Maryland said, "Hey, we can't. A team as good as Michigan, you can't help them." And I think it's going to be. You got people. The biggest thing for us is to stay healthy in this game. That's the biggest thing, is that we stay healthy. And I think there's going to be a little old school cooking from some of those backs. I think that you're going to see Javon Ford do some things, and it might not be in the paper, but he's going to be the one to give Clifford an extra second to throw it to Parker Washington a couple of times. I think Parker Washington scores twice. He's hungry. He hasn't scored yet.
Well, we will see. So, wrapping it up, guys. I wanted to, first of all, again, H, for your brother, we will be going before the throne of grace, trusting for his healing. And again, our condolences, big dude, for your loss of your friend. And folks, we care about you out there. We love you and we appreciate you. And we will lift you up continually. And we thank you for your time coming out here tonight. So, you guys have any other parting comments before we sign off?
Hey, let's go State. offensive line, you know what it is that you know what it is that you know what it is. And I want you to as Joe used to say, 3-4, 3-4, and boom. You know, I think the difference is you got 6 guys out there that could that could be Kenny Jackson. That's what doesn't that's what's so unfair. It could be Kenny Jackson, KB. And now you're going to play 6 or 7 wideouts. But here's the thing: it's those blocks, it's those downfield blocks, and I just want the defense. Y'all just keep being savage and let's go. Let's finish these guys.
Well said. Well said.
Mm-hmm.
Well said. I punctuated, and let's go.
All right,
Here we go.
well, on behalf of the one and only H and Dr. Big D, my name is Skipper Al. Thanks for joining us on Lions Live. Look forward to catching y'all next week. Let's go for a Penn State win. Thanks, guys. Awesome job. Great talking football. Love you lots. And look forward to catching you all again here soon. Have a good night, folks. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.